Listeners, today we are going to be talking about an issue that we all face. Doesn't matter who you are, if you are considering or in the middle of a divorce, you are dealing with this issue. It's probably changing everything about every day that you face, and you may not even realize how much it is affecting you. And that is your emotional and mental health and how the mind, body, spirit connection affects those. So stay tuned today. We're going to talk all about that with licensed marriage and family therapist Carrie Leaf, author of Therapize Yourself.
Welcome to the Starting Over Stronger show, where you'll find help and hope for your divorce survival and recovery. Divorce well, live well.
The greatest struggle of divorce is easily, hands down, how we manage our brains and the struggle that we all have with how to meet our own emotional and psychological needs during this season of loss and transition. So today I have asked licensed marriage and family therapist Carrie Leaf to join me on the show to talk about how to be your own therapist and what that even means. Carrie has written a book called Therapize Yourself, and I'm sure she will share more about that and some nuggets of wisdom from it with us here today. Thank you for joining us, Carrie.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, great. Well, let's start by having you tell us how you became an expert on therapizing yourself. What led you to write the book?
Sure. Good question. So I've been doing therapy and in the psychology field for a long time, over a decade. And even in my undergrad, working in, the psych unit in the hospital and then working through lots of different settings in the mental health field. And so after all of those years with all of the different clients that I've worked with, different ages, different groups, different reasons, issues that they're coming to therapy for, there were some basics that I just kind of kept finding myself repeating over and over and over to every single client. And so that's really kind of what the book is centered around, is a little bit about how to do a self-assessment on yourself. How are you doing in life? What's going on? Where are you at in each environment in your life? What areas are maybe lacking and which ones could be improved upon and which ones are you doing all right? And so that's a good area to maintain. So a little bit of a self-check-in, a self-assessment, and then some of the basics that are the foundation to just being able, if you don't have that strong foundation of I'm doing well in these few things, then it's harder to go to the next level up or the next level deeper, to mental, emotional part of it. And so looking at the mind, body, spirit, and are we doing at least the very basics to be balanced and well in those areas?
Okay, very good. Well, I was going to ask, and maybe you've kind of already answered it, but let's maybe expand upon it a little bit. In its most basic form, what do you mean when you say therapize yourself?
Yeah, that means a couple different things to me anyway. Therapize isn't actually a real word. So
I was going to ask that too.
Yes. It actually just, all through grad school. And then afterwards, when people would ask, what do you do? What's going on in your life? And I would tell them my profession. There would be questions of like, oh, are you therapizing me? Or I really need you to therapize me. And it would just crack me up because it's not a word, but I hear it all the time. And so it's just stuck. But yeah, so that's kind of the reason for the title. But also, therapize yourself means two other things to me. One is in the sense that we really are our own best self-healer. Like nobody is in our head, right? As an expert, I can know all the things from my studies and the books and in the research, but I'm not in your head no matter what. So, and intuitively, we know what we need to be healthy and whole and happy. Nobody else knows that but us. So we are our own best self-healers. So take charge and therapize yourself and work on yourself and heal and grow. The other part of that, the second part of that is therapize yourself in the sense of get into therapy, because yes, we are our own best self healers, but that doesn't mean that we know how and where to start. And sometimes we don't have the courage or the strength to go a little bit deeper. And sometimes we're just flat out blind to some of our stuff. And so having that, safe space and a therapeutic relationship with somebody that you trust can really help us to go a lot further and deeper faster than we might, trying on our own.
Yeah.
So it's, come around in twofold and go from both sides.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing and what you're saying is really a couple of things. One, personal responsibility. And I talk about that all the time with my clients. And two, that we really sometimes, especially when we're struggling with codependency, we really don't know who we are without feedback. And so it's important to have that feedback. And if it's in the form of a professional, then that's obviously going to be the best, because everyone else is just speaking out of their own experience, which may or may not really relate to what you're going through.
Sure. That feedback is huge. And the other part is our friends and family might give us fantastic feedback too, because they know us the best. But for example, with me, if I'm hearing it from my mom, I'm not hearing it, because we have all these like biases in our history with these people. And like, we just know too much. There's too much going on in those relationships. We have too many emotions tied in. So even if our friends and family, are telling us really good and healthy things about ourselves, it doesn't mean we're hearing it because of the source and where it's coming from. So a non-biased party absolutely is going to help you to hear it and listen that much more.
Yeah, great point. Well, when you and I talked about the show before, you'd mentioned the mind, body, spirit connection. How do you see that playing into the ability that we all have to therapize ourselves?
Yeah, it's crucial. They're all interconnected, and if you leave one out, you'll feel it. It's going to show up in another area. So the mind body one is the easiest one to kind of see directly a lot of times, because the spirit one is kind of big and vague and can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people. But, that mind body connection, or you can even, get more specific, it's the gut and the brain connection, that connection can go both ways in how it affects your life and your well-being. So if I am working really hard on my mental health, I'm maybe in therapy and I'm trying to learn things about myself, and I'm exploring and doing all those things. But I am not getting very much sleep. Maybe I'm getting 3-4 hours of sleep at night, and it's inconsistent, and I am eating, fast food at McDonald's and soda pop and lots of sugar every day. Then I'm going to sit here and wonder why I'm not feeling better. Why am I not, feeling like I'm getting better and growing? But that you're going to feel, your body is going to affect your mind, sugars and fast foods and lack of sleep. You're not going to make clear decisions. You're going to feel, brain fog. You're not going to feel well physically or in your brain. And, it goes both ways. If your mental health is off, it's going to start showing up in physical symptoms with anxiety, ulcers, stomach pains, IBS, things like that. They're going to pop up in all areas, and sometimes seemingly unrelated, but rarely are unrelated.
Right. Because as I've heard it said, your stomach is your second brain. Yes. Whatever's going on in your head that you're not dealing with is going to come out in a more physical way with your stomach, whether that's, IBS you mentioned, just the anxiety, that feeling you get in the pit of your stomach, that these are all of our emotions. I tell people all the time are like dashboard lights on your car. Exactly. You can ignore them if you want, but they're there for a reason. They're trying to tell you something. They're trying to help you. They're trying to help you prevent a bigger problem down the road. So it's really more wise to pay attention to them and understand what they are and why they're there.
Exactly. That's the exact analogy I use as well. I can ignore that check engine light probably for a while, and nothing might happen until one day I'm going to be stranded on the road. It's going to die. It's going to quit on me. Right. And then when I could have paid attention and hopefully, prevented something instead. Right. Exactly. Yes.
And maybe it's just that there's a sensor off and there's actually nothing wrong with the engine, but that's still something you need to know. Right.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because a lot of times, clients will come to me for obviously mental health issues and concerns, or just, when people hear, oh, I have a mental health issue, sometimes it's just day-to-day life issues, relational issues, work issues. We don't have to like make it sound like it has to be the severe issue that people are coming for, but they'll come, and I will start out everybody with a little bit of assessment of what's going on with your body. How are you treating yourself? And the longer I've been doing this, the more specific I have gotten in that area, or that like I try to encourage people to go as far as gut health. And because if our gut health is off, that could usually it's what we're putting into our body, but sometimes it's the products that we're using, the cleaning products, the lotions we're putting on our skin. All of those things can throw off your gut health as well. And if your gut health is off, or your body is just not healed and functioning the best it can for whatever reason over the years, that can show up as a mental health symptom. And then we're in here in therapy trying to tackle this mental health symptom that is because your physical body is off and it's not functioning the best. And so we're kind of barking up the wrong tree,
Right.
Not that a lot of the mental health things that we can work on and coping skills and things that we can process through aren't helpful, but
it goes both ways.
It goes both ways. And, maybe we get you feeling about 75% better, but for some reason that anxiety is still up or something. And it's because of gut health or a physical symptom going on. So we really want to be thorough with that.
Yeah. Excellent thought. Hey, this is Annie. I wanted to stop for just a moment and ask you what you're doing, besides listening to this podcast, to take care of yourself during your divorce. I mean, after all, if you don't, who will? There are several ways you can join Starting Over Stronger as you heal through divorce. First of all, very exciting news. We just launched the brand new startingoverstronger.com website. Come check it out and become a member so you can stay up to date on all the latest opportunities for support. If you haven't yet, you're also welcome to join our private Starting Over Stronger After Divorce group on Facebook. Denise recently joined there and shared that her divorce is a minute-by-minute struggle at times. And Gretchen also joined us recently as she faces a difficult separation situation and has all kinds of questions about what to do to protect herself. And of course, the more of you that join this group, the more answers you all can get from each other. And of course, I chip in there too. Now, the best spot for answers is in private or group coaching, where we can talk specifically about the exact issues that you're facing in a private format. So you'll also find out more about those on the new website. I watch for you to join both the new website platform and the Facebook group. Remember, the website is just startingoverstronger.com, but the private Facebook group is Starting Over Stronger After Divorce. And you will have to answer some questions there. And we make very sure that anybody that joins is someone that belongs. So I hope to see you all there soon. I would love to meet more of my listeners and get to know each of you and the situations that you're facing. So I hope to see you there soon. Well, so let's break this down a little bit. When we talk about mind, body, spirit, what would be some examples that you think of with your clients and so forth that would be good mindfulness exercises, especially for somebody going through a divorce, since that's what my listeners are?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of that is, just the basics with anything, trying to stay, mindfulness in general, trying to stay in the present moment as much as you possibly can, because especially if you're going through a divorce, but if you experience anything that feels traumatic or, scary, unknown, the mind starts going into the future and all the what ifs and then sometimes we start dwelling in the past and in the could have beens or I should haves. And if we're in the past, it's going to keep us in depression. It's going to lead us to depression. And if we're in the future, there's a good chance we're going to end up with anxiety. So just being mindful of where your thoughts are going and bringing them back into the here and now in general. But I do like people two things that I really like to see people doing to start out with is, if they've never done any kind of mindfulness or meditation, is some mindfulness guided meditation. Put on some headphones, get comfortable somewhere you can relax, no interruptions, and pull up YouTube and pull up a guided meditation for whatever you need. Maybe it's stress, anxiety, self-esteem, whatever you need, and listen to that, once a day, twice a day, as often as you can, because getting that message into the subconscious is huge. But we can also practice mindfulness when we breathe, when we walk, when we eat. And the more you do it, the more you're training your brain, So the other part that I really like to see people getting into with mindfulness and that mind-body connection is understanding what they're feeling in their body, being able to connect to their body. Because when we're going through hard times and painful times, we a lot of times disconnect from our body. So it's the central nervous system that's getting out of whack, and then we're almost not trusting it, and it gets triggered for things that maybe it doesn't necessarily need to be triggered for. So all of a sudden we might be feeling fear and anxiety over something that our thoughts brought up, but that actually isn't even reality or hasn't happened yet. And so we need to work on connecting that mind and body so that we can trust our body, so that the body doesn't send off all these alarm bells, that really don't need to alert us, because we're creating that reality in our head. So I ask people to try to sit with their body, practice 30 seconds at a time. So think of something that maybe you're fearful of. Maybe you're fearful of the finances and what this looks like when you're on your own, and sit with that feeling, deep breaths, and sit with that feeling for 30 seconds and notice what comes up for you, but particularly notice what and where you feel it in your body. And you may feel it, maybe your stomach just drops. Maybe your chest gets tight. A lot of times mine is in my throat. My throat gets tight and tense, and it kind of feels like I can't breathe. And then when you notice that and you describe it, maybe you kind of label it a little bit more. Maybe it feels like a black box just blocking my airway. Maybe it feels, like a circle. Maybe it feels cold. Maybe, get to know that feeling and then sit with it for another 30 seconds. And I'm not saying this is pleasant or comfortable, but the more you do it, the more you realize that feeling is not going to kill you. That you can face that feeling. You will not die. You can face that feeling. And in fact, if you sit with it for 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 30 seconds at a time, the feeling will pass. The feeling will go away. But we're often so quick to jump out of that feeling and avoid it and ignore it and shove it away, that we don't get to process through it and trust our body and realize, oh, I can handle this. So being very mindful of where your emotions are coming up in your body.
Yeah. Yeah. Fear is a liar, I mean, it really, truly is. And I remember very clearly the time I was in therapy and I was, going on and on about something I was fearful for. And the therapist stopped me and said, okay, let's go there. Because it was like a what if, what if this, what if that? Let's go there. What if that happened? What would you do? And then what would you do? And then what would you do? And then eventually you get to that worst case scenario and you're like, well, gosh, I'd figure it out. I always figure it out. It's not like, and I'm a Christian, so I use this analogy a lot. Fear and worry is just looking at the future with God factored out. Like you don't think he's going to be there helping you figure it out when you get there. And he is. And you're going to be able to figure things out that day, just like you're figuring things out today. So sometimes, even though, like you said, sitting in it is yucky and it's scary and it doesn't feel good, it actually will get you to a place of feeling good when you realize it's not that big, scary, ugly monster that you're making it out to be in your mind. So
exactly. Instead of shoving it down, if we face it, we get to feel a little bit more empowered.
Yeah. And, the fact is that our minds are very powerful. Thoughts are incredibly powerful. I talk all the time about thoughts being really equivalent to results. And when you change your thoughts, you change the results. So this is a way of doing that. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So what do you see as the most important considerations with regard to the body, especially during divorce again?
Yeah, a lot of times, not everybody, but when we're under stress, we're going to not treat our body very well a lot of times, and I get it. A lot of times we're just happy we got out of bed. So yes, celebrate the little wins with what we do, what we get accomplished. But a lot of times our reaction under that kind of fear and stress and trauma is to not eat, to eat a lot less, or to overeat, and eat the whatever our comfort foods might be that are generally not that healthy. So with the body, there's the three things: eating well, getting physical exercise, movement, and getting adequate sleep. And, we really do need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. There's a tiny percentage of the population, I think, that functions just fine off 5, but that's not most of us, and so 7 to 9 hours of sleep, doing all the sleep hygiene things that can help us with that sleep, as I know it's hard to sleep when we're stressed and worried. But it really, if you're going to focus on anything, trying to set everything aside and make sure that you have good food in the house, that you're eating good, healthy food, and that you're moving that body. Because like I said, if your body is not in peak condition and functioning its best, if you're not giving it the fuel that it needs, then your decision-making skills are out the window. And we're going to do things we regret. We're going to let fear just drive all of our actions. Whereas if our brain and our body are fueled properly and we're recharged because we sleep well at night and we're functioning the best, I'm not saying we're going to feel happy and, go get them and rainbows and butterflies for doing that with our body, but we'll make better decisions. And each day that we make better decisions is a day that we feel better about ourselves and how we treat ourselves. And when we treat our body poorly, it might not directly feel like this in our head. It might not directly feel like this, but we're sending ourselves a message that we're not worth better. We're not our body, and therefore ourselves, we're not worth treating really well and taking care of. And that's the last thing we want to do to ourselves.
Yeah, even if you don't feel that way, you send your body that message. And I think sometimes we know we need sleep. And so we do things that we know maybe in the past have led to sleep. And so one thing that I talk about with my clients a lot is just how much they're drinking and how close to bedtime they're drinking. Because it's not that it's bad to have a cocktail with dinner or a glass of wine or what have you. It's just that the later you drink into the evening, even if it does cause you to fall into bed quicker and fall asleep quicker, oftentimes it also causes you to wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and not be able to go back to sleep because your digestion is keeping your brain from resting. So it's important to recognize those kinds of things so that you can get the adequate sleep that you need. And if you're not getting the sleep you need, then you're probably not going to feel like getting out of bed in the morning to go for a walk or to do yoga or do whatever it is that you're doing to have that physical activity. So then one thing leads to another. The nutrition and the activity and the sleep all feed into each other. And when one's off, they kind of all tend to be off. So.
Absolutely. Yes. The alcohol, that plays a big factor. You're right. Like 1 or 2 here and there, but if alcohol stays in the system for quite a while. So if you're having 1 or 2 every single night as well, that's going to take a while for your body to process through that and feel better. You're never giving your body the chance to fully, eliminate that and function its best if you're having something every night. And yes, even if it feels like we're falling asleep, well, the quality of sleep is poor and we really need that good quality REM sleep to feel better and make good decisions. Absolutely. And I like to, if people are on board, I like to encourage taking the body stuff even further with genetic testing and functional medicine and food sensitivities and things like that. So we can just make sure, just optimize our functioning as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you struggling to decide whether divorce is the right decision for you, or just tired of feeling like you're broken and everything is all your fault? The decision of how and whether to leave a toxic relationship can take years without good support from people who understand. The Starting Over Stronger Toxic Relationship Recovery Support Group is designed with you in mind. led by me, certified divorce and life transition coach, Annie Allen, and with a small group of women in your shoes. You're going to find understanding here. We're going to talk about the patterns of these relationships and what you can do about them. There are currently 2 weekly groups running, one on Monday evenings at 6 p.m. Central and the other on your Wednesday lunch hour at noon Central. So whether you need an evening or a daytime group to meet your needs for privacy during this call, please consider joining us. If you're interested in learning more, just send an email with your interest from your secure email address that only you have access to Annie@startingoverstronger.com. And if you're in a controlling or abusive relationship, wondering how you could ever be a part of a support group like this without putting yourself at risk or exposing your desire to leave, please indicate that in your email and we can discuss solutions. You can make this work. And I know you feel alone, but you're not. Reach out and find the help you need. From your experience as a professional and even your personal experience, if you want, how can one best serve their spiritual needs during divorce?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we overlook that area so often. And not everyone, obviously, so it really depends. That question is really individual, and it's going to depend on where you're at in your spiritual journey. For some people, their spiritual realm and that side of it is church and their religion and their faith. For some people, it's their belief system and how they believe that the world works and why. And so that can mean a lot of different things. But I think the most important thing in that area is that you're just tapping into it, that you're not ignoring it. Maybe you've never even thought about it before. What is my spirituality? What does that mean? Is it my purpose? Is it what brings me joy? Is it my religion? What is it? And so maybe it's just starting to explore it. Maybe that looks like showing up at church when you haven't gone for a while. Maybe that looks like going out in nature and connecting with the universe and feeling, interconnected in that way. Maybe it just means picking up a book and exploring, what do I believe, and what makes sense to me and what doesn't. It's really going to depend on where you're at in that journey. But I just want there to be a journey. I don't want that area to be ignored.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think the key word in everything you said was exploration, explore, because even if you have had some kind of a spiritual tradition or certain beliefs, maybe in your past or, your whole life even, that are maybe going to be challenged as part of your divorce journey, and probably in a good way. You're going to be forced to think about these things. You're going to have more time and energy to put toward those things that you were putting toward trying to save a marriage. Now you get to focus on you and really start thinking about what do I believe and how do I want that to look in my life? And do I even want to go to church? And if I do, which one do I want to go to? And if I don't, what do I want to do that's going to get me connected spiritually with what I believe?
Absolutely. Because especially when we're going through a divorce, we're kind of leaving behind a version of ourselves. There's a grieving process of who we were in that life, and with that situation or that family. And like you're saying, maybe with faith or religion, so many times we just do what we've known, how we were raised, how we were brought up, what we've been told, what we've just known. We just do what we've known. And when what we've known for however long comes crashing down, definitely can feel rocky and scary, but also is a chance to come into your own truth, get to know yourself rather than just, living in familiarity. And yes, explore and find yourself and create.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, kind of wrapping this all up, what would you say to that person who says they can't afford a therapist or a coach? The question here kind of revolves around the consideration that I feel like, and I'm sure that you would agree, there's an element of you really can't afford not to, and I imagine most people would say that they can't afford a lawyer either, but they figure out a way because they know it's a necessity as they go through a divorce. And so, how do we help people to understand that therapy and coaching in their own unique ways are equally a necessity? And ironically, in most cases, will even offset the cost of those legal fees.
Yes, it's really tricky and it's really hard, especially with the way insurance is set up, or if you even have insurance, or if the coach or the therapist takes insurance, so there's so many different factors around that. But it is one of those things where there is a will, there's a way, if you see the value in it, and it just might look different at different times in your life. I know that in my life, in and out of different experiences with therapy, it's, I've had to look for different providers based on insurance, or when I didn't have insurance, I needed to work out payment plans, or I needed to go every couple or few weeks instead of weekly, or, we got to adjust to what fits into our budget. I don't want anyone to be reckless and throw away money that's going to put them in a bad place, and I shouldn't say throw away because, spending money on therapy isn't throwing it away, but we don't want anyone to be reckless and spend all kinds of money that they don't have. And then they're stressing and anxiety around debt and finances. But like you said, you can put yourself in a worse situation by not attending to these things in the long run. It's like, our physical health, we accept that like preventative care for our physical health is necessary, go to the doctor once a year, go to the dentist every 6 months, do these things so that we don't find ourselves with medical health issues that are going to be really hard to get out of or, reverse because we haven't been paying attention to them for so long.
Yeah.
And the same goes for our mental health as well. If you're preventative and you maintain, that's going to save a lot of bad decisions in your life. It's going to save, breakdowns and stress. And then it's going to save the physical effects that stress and anxiety can, create for us. That preventative care is absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really going to come down to how you look at it.
You're right. And I think a lot of it is just kind of that whole abundance versus scarcity thinking, and the reality that, there are things that we purchase and spend our money on all the time that hold very little value that we could stop spending on in order to allow us to have what we need to spend it on things that are more important. And, when you talk about preventative, that just comes down to, you can look at that from a health perspective, from a mindfulness or mental health perspective. And when you go to the dentist twice a year and have them clean and examine and do all the things they do with your teeth, look below the surface with the x-rays and so forth, they catch things early and they keep things clean and well maintained so that you don't end up, if you didn't go for 10 years and you go in and you've got a mouthful of cavities. Now, which is going to be more expensive, going twice a year for that little cleaning, or filling 10 cavities, or doing a root canal, or, all of these other things that are astronomically more expensive, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with therapy and coaching, especially in a divorce scenario, because the main reason people spend tens of thousands of dollars on a divorce with an attorney is because they don't have the emotional and mental support that they need from a therapist and a coach as they do it. They're trying to go it alone, and they're kind of using their attorney like a therapist or a coach, and they're very expensive, $375 an hour for that, which you're never going to pay for therapy and coaching. So it's very much the same exact consideration that, we do this as a preventative measure so that we don't end up doing those really expensive things later that are just not for our good anyway.
Yes. And I think a lot of people look at it like, I don't have the time, whether it's in my life or the time to wait for therapy to pay off. And it's true. It's not an overnight thing. Absolutely not. But when you're in those critical moments and your emotions are just all over the place and really high, it can take one therapy session to help you and guide you to make a more, calm and collected and centered decision, than you would if you weren't in that session. So I am not saying that anyone is going to, be completely healed and done in one session.
No,
absolutely
right.
not. But it also doesn't mean that you won't see benefits for like 6 months to a year. You can see benefits immediately when you start working and challenging your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. You just get new ways to think about things, and you probably feel heard in a way that you haven't before. And there's a lot of power just in that alone. So
Yes.
you can absolutely see results in one session. So, I guess in wrapping up, I'll just say, I spent many years in therapy, and I still go back occasionally because I get my mindset off somehow on an issue, and I need to kind of push that reset button. And I encourage all of my coaching clients to have a therapist if I sense that there are old issues that are at play today. Because a lot of times the way I explain it is therapy takes the present moment and says, how do we explain today based on yesterday and based on the past, so that you can understand your today. Whereas coaching doesn't necessarily look at the past. We just start with today and we say, where do you want to be? And how can we get you there? And sometimes I can't get you there because there's too much pulling you back from the past. And so they work really well together. And it's the perfect combination of things to have both at this major life transition and loss point that is divorce. So I absolutely encourage people to be in therapy if there is a need for that.
Yes, I completely agree. And I'm glad you kind of, laid out that distinction, that difference between the two. I think a lot of people are confused on that, and they're both so beneficial in their different ways. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what are your final thoughts about the gift of learning how to manage your own brain?
That's a good question.
Wrap it all up, put a bow on it for us.
Yeah. My final thoughts are with that is just start, the baby steps, a lot of times it's so overwhelming, the issues that we know we need to address. They're big and they're overwhelming and they're scary. And so we push it away and we avoid it because we just can't, we're not ready to tackle that. But break it down and take the baby steps. Maybe tackling your mental health or a big, scary, painful issue means that you chose healthy food today. Maybe it means that you went on a 20-minute walk today. Just start building. We don't decide who we want to be one day and then wake up that person the next day. That doesn't happen. We have to build it. We have to create it. So it's little steps, one at a time. And if you start to make those choices, I think, one major thing is recognizing that it is choices. My choice to eat healthy, or my choice to eat fast food, my choice to go on a walk, or my choice to sit on the couch. In every moment we have those choices. And if you start to make those healthy choices, here and there, in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months, you're going to be in a totally different place. Just do the baby steps.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect send off, because that's where all your power lies, and recognizing that you don't have to take the whole staircase tomorrow. You just need to take the next right step, whatever that is. If that's call and make an appointment with a therapist, if it's get into coaching, if it's, making that appointment with an attorney because the divorce needs to happen and you've just been afraid to pull that trigger. It's just deciding what's that very next step, and knowing that you don't have to know all of the rest of the steps that are going to come. It's one day at a time, and all you have to do is today. So thank you for that reminder.
Yes.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you so
here.
much. Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Yes, it has. Thank you so much. And listeners, I hope you've gotten something great from today. I think it's very important for all of us to recognize that, really divorce and any major life transition is a heavily emotional and psychologically taxing time in our life. And there's really nobody that couldn't benefit from therapy and coaching during such a major transition point. So if that's you today, reach out and get help today from whatever and wherever you are and need to be. So we encourage you to do that. And we're here if you need us. And so thank you again for being here each week as we talk about the things that matter to you in your divorce. And we'll see you again next Wednesday for more help as you divorce and hope as you are starting over stronger.